At the top of the program, I showed you how Anthony Albanese said he had a plan for government. Before the election, we could hardly miss the point.
I know that Labor has the right plans and the right policies and the right people for this moment. That's our plan for a better future. And that's what today is all about. Labor's plan for a better future.
I'm here at the National Press Club today to outline Labor's plan for a better future.
We have a plan to end the climate wars. We have a plan to make more things here in Australia. It is a plan for a better future.
I began this campaign outlining Labor's plans to build a better future.
A plan built around the lessons from these last 2 years. We need a Labor government with a better plan for a better future.
Man with a plan, hey? Today, claiming to have hit the ground running after 100 days in government, the Prime Minister couldn't really point to a lot that he's done or he's doing. It was more about watch this space.
The Jobs and Skills Summit we're convening this week is evidence of this. It signals we are willing to look at the hard questions, to face up to the big challenges, to embrace the need for real reform.
Yeah, real reform. Whatever it is, we'll see a plan for that sometime soon, we're told. Let me bring in National Senate Leader Bridget McKenzie. Thanks for joining us again, Bridget. We're waiting to see, really, at the end of the week, what the reforms are going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. You would have to be blind, Freddie, to not know that we had a skills shortage issue going into the election, let alone having to wait, in excess of 3 months to have a conversation with industry leaders and unions and the wider public about how we're going to solve the problem. I mean, we were addressing this in government with our ag visa and a whole raft of other measures. But just watching that montage as we let in Chris, this guy was saying he had a plan. The Emperor has no plan. There's been no detail. And they've been really caught short over the last 100 years of the end result of a small target strategy. There's been delays in programs, there's been cuts to essential funding and a raft of uncertainty across the board from this government in their 100 years. And if the biggest thing they've done is get Shaq out to back the Voice and have a talk fest on an issue that we already knew was at crisis point, then, I think the Australian people have been sold a pup, and let's hope they get their skates on, because the challenges are real and they need a real government to actually be able to deal with them.
Look, we knew they didn't have a big agenda. That was very open before the election, and that's why they're talking about a plan, always talking about a plan. There was nothing there. But now we have to wait for the theatre of the summit before they take action. But as you mentioned, the real problem in this country is labour shortages. Surely it's so obvious already what they'll do is they've got to speed up some visa and immigration issues to get more workers into the country. And they've got to take up the idea that the coalition has been promoting it belatedly. Admit it, you should have been doing this maybe a year or so ago yourselves, and that is allowing pensioners to do more work in the in the economy without suffering penalties.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've put a really practical solution on the table. We're hoping we get to debate the legislation that will be able to enact that in the Senate in the coming sitting weeks. We do need greater lift in migration to actually ensure the skill set that we're targeting from overseas workers is actually what's needed, and we need to make sure that we get that longer term planning in place around training. Now, if Albo can get unions and business on the same table, he also needs to get all those Labor premiers and a couple of Liberal ones to actually start harmonising our skills and training recognition, so that if you are a tradie in Tasmania, you can equally work on the mainland and have those skills recognised. When I'm talking as Infrastructure and Transport Shadow Minister, we're going to be 100,000 people short in the infrastructure space alone, and truckies are just getting older and can't have that harmonisation piece. So in both of those critical areas of policy that drive the economic agenda, infrastructure and transport, the skill shortages are really, really tight. They're already there, and waiting decades to fix it isn't going to happen. I know we need to get more women into a raft of different types of professions. I know we need to look after the caring economy, etc., and we have to look at emissions. But for me, if we want to get this economy going and recovering quickly, we need to be building the infrastructure for the 21st century, and those shortages are happening right now.
Now, what about all the sweetness and light we're hearing about big unions talking to small business organisations? Should we be optimistic about cooperation here, or is this an attempt by the unions to actually get their fingers into more small business operations?
Look, I'm always for collaboration, cooperation, and I try to be an optimist, Chris. But I've been around long enough to know that Sally McManus has not been shy in putting forward ACTU's plans for what our workforce looks like and what our industrial relations system should look like. I come from a small business family. We need to make sure it is simple to hire people, and that if you don't get the right worker, that it's actually a simple mechanism to actually move that person on. We need businesses that can get the right people in the right place and pay them a fair wage. I'm not for, I think everyone recognises that workers need to be paid a fair entitlement in this country, but we also need to make sure that the system's flexible enough and simple enough.
Sure.
For small businesses to be able to negotiate it, because they don't have a HR department.
Exactly. The smaller the business, the more flexibility they need. There's no doubt about that. Thanks for joining us, Bridget. Appreciate it.
Always.
Senator Bridget McKenzie there, who's the Shadow Infrastructure and Transport Minister, apart from being the Senate leader for the Nats.